Today, I'd like to show you a game based on an opening that is very popular with the King's College School Cambridge Chess Club. It's a very short game, but I'd like to show one or two variations, that is to say, things that might have happened that didn't, and many of those I've seen in school games. White was Andrew Stafford, who tended to play board 2 behind Shy Hill for the King's team in the early 80s when I was first running the chess club there. And in this match, he has a very quick win against a player from Bedford Modern School. I haven't got a record of his name. It was part of a tournament that took place at Holmwood House School in Essex, which Bedford Modern won, actually, with Kings just half a point behind, but not this game. Now, the opening that I'm talking about is known as the fried liver and becomes possible when we get this. The king's pawns are played first, and then you've all seen this position many times. And then we have the Italian game, as opposed to the Spanish game, which is with the bishop one further up on b5. And if black chooses to defend with the knight on f6, you get the so-called two knights defense, and it makes possible the fried liver attack, which actually can be good for black too, and tends to create quite a hairy game. If you're not very comfortable with that, can I suggest that instead of playing knight f6 on move 3 as black, you go for bishop c5 here, and then the fried liver doesn't really become applicable. So in this game, knight f6 was played, and Andrew Stafford, who had been shown this opening and I think had done it successfully before, now plays knight g5. Now this contradicts one of the basic opening principles, which is not to move the same piece twice in the opening unless you absolutely have to. But just for once, it does have some merit, because you're attacking this very weak square, the Achilles heel, if you like, of black's defense, which is the f7 square. And black can't really defend it by putting the queen there, because if so, then the pawn on f7 will fall anyway. You're not going to give up your queen for a bishop and knight. Simply isn't worth it. So in order to protect that pawn on f7, black has to play d5 here. But that gives white the opportunity to capture the pawn. Now, I'll come to this variation here, where black doesn't block at all, but tries this counterattack, sometimes called the Wilkes-Barre variation. I'll come back to that. But let's have a look now at what happened in the game. So d5 played, and Andrew took the pawn. And if you don't want to go in for the fried liver, you still have a chance to get out of it by playing knight a5 here. That's not a bad move. And one response by white might be that, or to just pull the bishop away. Checking can be dangerous. And it creates a fairly equal position. Yes, okay, black is a pawn down, but has the bishops both ready to come out, look. And so a lead in development more than makes up for it. But anyway, in the game, knight takes d5 was played. And now we come to what's called the fried liver attack, when the white knight sacrifices itself on the f7 square, forking the queen and rook. And therefore black has no choice but to take the knight with the king. So we get king takes f7. And now white has a very good follow-up move, queen f3 check, which leads to a double attack on the king and the knight, which is the knight's already attacked by the bishop and pinned, of course, too. And so that knight can only be protected by the king coming to this square. But it's amazing how often, I have seen this quite a lot in schools chess, that this is forgotten about. So I've often seen this, for example, king e8. It's not really very good. And white simply captures the knight. And the result is that he's now got his piece back and a pawn, and black's king can never castle because it's already moved. And there's also the threat of this checkmate here, which again, I've seen on many occasions, the black player has failed to deal with that. don't recommend that particularly. It's not great chess. And neither really was the game played here, but it's still very instructive. So what actually happened in the game that Andrew Stafford played is that the queen went here, the king went to g8, which is the worst possible move, and now white has a mate, a very quick mate in a couple of moves. Bishop takes d5 check. You could put the bishop in the way, but that will only delay checkmate by one move. If you take the queen, rather actually that would probably be just the same, and the bishop goes in the way here and it's checkmate. So that was quite a remarkable game. But more interesting, I think, is what happens if the black player, instead of playing d5 here to protect his pawn, or knight a5 to drive away the bishop, plays bishop c5 to counterattack against white's Achilles heel, which is f2. And now here we have a game that I played against Shai Hill, who was the board one at the time. I played him quite a lot, and he did win a number of them, but not on this occasion. He was white, I was black, and he took the bait, he went for knight takes f7. Now, I captured on f2 there, so he can't yet capture my queen, which he wants to do. He has got to either move his king out of line or capture my bishop. Capturing there has its risks, because then black follows up with knight g4, and then queen h4 can often be a good follow-up still. And Shai Hill spotted that, so he immediately played king f1. Queen went to e7 now. I've got to do that, because otherwise the queen is lost, and give up my rook. But in return for giving up my rook here, I now have a move which forces his bishop away, or at least gives me space to be able to play a knight move here. And now I'm really threatening to bring my bishop in there, and then his queen is lost. So he drops his bishop back there. Queen f8 threatens to pick up the knight, and also if white takes the bishop here, I've got a discovered check there. So he tried bishop f3, and by playing bishop g4 here, I had an advantage. He now took, but knight e4 check, and he can't take that knight because my bishop will capture his queen. And I went on to win a few moves later. It's a very double-edged game, and there are chances for white if white plays well. Indeed, the computer doesn't like this move, bishop c5, very much, and well-prepared white players can deal with it. But in practice, it's amazing how often white can go wrong in this position. But that's if you have plenty of confidence or nerves of steel, as I've said here. So let's now look at what might happen if, after queen f3 check here, the black king goes to the best square available, which is e6. Now here we have, again, a situation that's occurred a lot of time in high-level chess, and the theory about who is better off constantly changes, although it tends to favor white. And I'm just going to show a possible continuation here. This continuation assumes pretty strong play by both players. Notice how the knight that's pinned by the bishop, and therefore can't move, is now attacked by three pieces: the bishop here, the knight here, and the queen here. So how can black deal with that? Well, that knight can now provide an extra defense along with the queen and king. So black is just hanging on there, but only just. And now it's a little better for black because he brought the pawn up to defend the knight here. But black effectively has to give up his knight here. So he's pretty well returned the piece that he had earlier. So material is about equal now, but black's king is still stuck in the middle, and therefore many people would say white has the advantage. Black has got to try and get developed quickly. Likewise white. And this is a possible continuation. Black is just about getting his king to safety, but it is costing a bit of time, and it still probably leaves white with a bit of an advantage. But there's plenty of chess left in this game, and probably the stronger player, the better tactical player, is going to win. But to go back to the win by Andrew Stafford, it's more or less on what not to do as black here. You should not, definitely should not go. Let's find it here. Into that square there. That isn't much better. Once you have accepted this knight on f7, you have got to go with it and play your king to e6 here. Thanks for watching.